Well, hi, folks. I guess I can say hi because it's been a while since we've produced the show, the show that we like to call the Coffee Break Show. And being the first show back, I thought, why not bring some beauty into the coffee break? Because Ask Shell Coffee Break, normally we don't have as much success in the form of beautiful ladies coming on the show. Well, we're going to talk about art today. Yes, art. And with me I have Jamie Smith. How you doing, Jamie?
I'm good.
It's always nice to have a person on the show that may be critical of a few things of my own, like the backdrop that we have here. We decided at the last minute to get away from that there artistic back, because we're talking about art. And so we put up the bed sheet. So I forgot to iron it this morning, so don't get too uptight about it, folks, okay? There's a few wrinkles in it, but there's not going to be any wrinkles in this interview. But we're going to talk about art. And first of all, talking about art, Jamie, it's art to me, and one day I might even let it go here on this show what I do for art. And but I'm not going to let it go too quick because it's very, very interesting. But to say the least, you being here and your whole artistic approach is dealing with confessions. I'm going to lead out with that, confessions. Mm-hmm. But let me ask you a couple questions. How did you ever get into art?
I think art is something that just happens to us when we're creative. So when I was young, I was always doing art. But in high school, I had a really amazing teacher who was a mentor to me, who told me that I could go to art school and make it a profession, which I had never imagined. So I did. I went to the University of Victoria and did a fine arts degree, graduated with no idea what to do. And but I remembered that teacher, so I actually went back and did a year PDP program in the teaching UBC teaching program. Right. So I have an arts education degree as well, and I started teaching art because I really feel that empowering young people to be creative is a very important thing.
So you're not just the normal run-of-the-mill artist.
I've done things a little differently.
Well, and with the whole niche of confessions, I think that's, folks, you can't believe what you're going to hear here. So stick with us. It's going to be interesting because I want to ask one more question that we'll get on into this confession event. Did your mom and dad really agree to you becoming an artist?
They've come around. I've proven myself here, but they also were very supportive, but they really liked that I had the teaching behind me. Mm-hmm. And it's something I do really love, but I thought it was now or never. So a year ago I quit my job and I started doing this full time, which was quite a leap of faith. But I look at it, it's a business, and when you go out on your own in anything, you have to start learning how to market, how to learn to be something that's useful and wanted, right?
It's kind of the artistic, entrepreneurial approach to things.
It is. So
yeah.
It's been an interesting year.
Well, really and truly. And where I met you was out at your mother's RV resort,
yes.
The Springs RV Resort out in Harrison Hot Springs, yes. British Columbia.
Yes.
And folks, we have a lot out there. Now, we're not going to get into that, but that's where I met Jamie. And after talking to Jamie about art and confessions, and I thought, gosh, there's a few things I have to confess about, but well, we'll get around to that. We'll get around to that a little bit later on. But when it comes to interviewing and what have you, interviewing artists are not necessarily the easiest people to talk to, because you all have that, as you indicated, creative influence on whatever it is you're going to be painting. You're not taking a photograph of something and then painting that photograph. You're not going out with an easel and painting the landscape like the lake at Harrison Lake. You're painting confessions. Mm-hmm. Now, who would be one of your I guess assignments. We better tell the people what this whole confessions is all about. First of all, what is the whole reason for confessions?
Well, it started a year ago for me. This has been a project, and I use painting as a way sort of get some things off my chest. And for me, it was a creative outlet to work through problems. So I came to a point where I thought, what if I asked other people to give me things that they needed to deal with anonymously? Mm-hmm. And I put my artistic flair on it. What would that do? So over the year, I've collected over 300 confessions, all anonymously. And I've had different shows over the year, and when I would get a confession and they would inspire me, I would paint a picture on canvas. And what I try to do is bring a sense of beauty or peace, or I try to resolve the confession. I try to bring something a little bit interesting to it in hopes that whoever is going through it could actually use my painting as a bit of a therapy, a creative therapy. They might not go out and paint, but I tried to use my skill as a way to be helpful, I guess.
What are some of your confession clients? Are they wedding parties? Are they funerals?
So,
I know it sounds a little bit, I know, out of the 21st century, but we are in the 21st century. So, but who is your client?
So the Confessions Project is something that I've done on my own, and it's all anonymous, so I don't know who the people are, but it's sort of a way that I've been doing these shows and my creative outlet. But I actually specialize in commission paintings, and that is for clients that come to me that want a painting that tells their story. So I found that I've done a lot for people getting married, and I'll put their first dance song in the background, different symbols that are important to them, colors of their wedding or colors of their home. So it becomes a gift, either to each other or from someone that loves them.
Wow, that's neat.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting. I think the confessions, I started to look at other people's input, led me to basically what my business is built on, which is commission work and getting to know people and getting to know their story. And they're not as grim as some of the confessions, which can be a little dark. So now it's been interesting because it's weddings. I do a lot for children's rooms, so parents will write advice for their child or words of wisdom that they want them to remember, and the words are all hidden in the painting. So at first glance it's a beautiful piece of art, but actually when it becomes a story of your family, and you can talk about it to people and guests.
Wow, that makes, looking at the building industry, and I hang up all the pictures at our home as well. But one of the things that would come to mind would be what would happen if you were commissioned to do a wedding party, but down the road maybe a divorce party.
You never know. Whatever people are celebrating. Or need to remember. So.
Well, now tell me, have you ever run into a more interesting interview than that on Shell Buzzy's House Smart Ask Shell Coffee Break? Well, let me tell you. Now, how many shows do you do, or do you do shows?
Yeah, so the confessions, I do shows for that because that's sort of a way for me to show people what I'm doing. Commission is more people come to me and then I create them in my studio and it goes right to their home. But the confessions are sort of my fine art creative outlet. And so at the show, I have one coming up in White Rock at the Community
White Rock,
Center.
British Columbia, folks.
Perfect. Next week is the opening night on Thursday, July 24th. And so people will come drop in and have a look. And what they'll find there's 15 paintings. So each painting is about a certain confession. And I've also built a confessional booth. And that sits in the middle of the scene. You
mean you actually come in and you sit and
you can go
you
into
make
the
your
booth,
confession?
And you have a piece of paper. It says, "This is my confession," and you write it down and you slip it in. You don't put your name. I don't want to know. And then your confession could be in the next show. So every show I'm collecting more information and more inspiration for my next confession show.
Do you have a small, like, post-it type of notes?
I could get you a couple if you need more.
I think I likely need to be some foolscap.
They are just little cards. I try to keep it short.
Well, I'm going to have to fold it up, I'm afraid. But, you know, isn't that interesting, though, folks, when you consider the fact that a show... When I heard this, first of all, in Confessions, I thought, what on earth is Jamie Smith talking about?
I know.
But it does really make sense. It really, when you come to it, it's like going to an old-time fortune teller.
Well, I've done a lot of research on confessions, and I started to really think about this idea of why we keep things so hidden. And the word shame keeps coming up, the word of being shameful. But shame actually only really lives when we hide things. And so the idea that, I don't know, but I hope that by getting this out in a very safe place, you're at an art show. Everything goes at an art show.
Yeah.
So getting out these words, and I've seen now, I've done 4 of these, and the conversations that start at the openings. That's why I love having the openings of gathering people, because people will be standing in front of a confessional painting and they're talking about the painting, but they start to kind of talk about themselves and a little bit of their life and how they've dealt with things, because all the paintings deal with sort of our human themes: love, loss, failure, success. Yeah, so it becomes a very interesting experience.
Very, very interesting. No kidding. I mean, it's like my art, which I'll make reference to right now, in fact. My creative art happens to be tie art.
Tie art.
Spelled T-I-E, like in necktie.
Oh.
I have never thrown a necktie away.
Oh my goodness.
So what I do with my ties, I tie them and create different motifs, and I mount them. They can be singularly mounted with no frame or with frame, but they're all tied into things that I have done, things that I would like to do, and so it's actually, in a sense, it's similar. And I have a couple pieces downstairs. And I tried to teach our grandsons how to do this, and I have to admit they were bored stiff by the time I got them doing what it was they did. I think I've one of theirs downstairs, but I know now they would appreciate it, and I know now they do appreciate it. But it's called tie art, and I've got a lot of ties.
Anything that gets out some of your story, or you start to think, that's why I love being creative, is because it really makes you think, and it becomes this process of who you are. And doing this professionally, I now get to paint so much. Before it was a treat, right? It was a hobby. So now it's really fun for me to bring other people in and start to help them get out what they want to share.
Well, we want some of those paintings, confessions on our walls here at the office here as well.
Get some good conversation going.
I want to show people because, and also our daughter Monica, who is the owner now of Shell Buzzy's House Smart Home Services Referral. She's taking up some very creative painting now with Kathy Van Gogh with the Van Gogh fossil paint line, which you're going to hear more about over the next few shows down the road. We're not going to get into art every doggone show, that's for sure, but this is very interesting. But Monica is taking on its color, and it's creative. It's bringing your personality out and what have you.
Yeah.
But I got to go into another area of your experience, and that is when you're commissioned to do a confession art show. Do people really get into it as a couple, or is it normally a singular person?
Well, the commissions that I've been doing, especially for homes, it's usually a couple. So they'll talk. So the one I'm working on right now, actually, it's really lovely. It's a couple that's been married for 30 years. So they gave me their vows and 2 songs that now are very meaningful to them. So we kind of go back to when they met, to their relationship, how it's gone, and words that now are very meaningful. So what I've done is I've taken pieces, and it's my creativity, saying what I believe is important.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked out these words, and the whole back of the painting are the words. And when they're read together, it's sort of this new story. And these other words that have become part of who they are. So the words are all in the background, and then it's going to be a big red painting because their living room, they want to accent it with red.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That is really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Now, you live in White Rock, British Columbia, and your mother is involved in her future mainstay resort out in Harrison.
Yes.
And living here all your life and going to school here, you must have run into a person by the name of Mary Mickelson.
Actually, I got a scholarship in grade 12 for my secondary education through the Nicholson Foundation.
So the Arnold Mickelson Foundation?
Yes.
Wow.
Which was hugely helpful, and also at that age, I was very inspired that an artist and a couple were able to give money to the arts. That is, for me, like the goal, right? To be able to then spread it down.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's exciting.
Coincidentally, there you go. And Mary Mickelson carries on a tremendous art presentation in South Surrey, White Rock, and she's well known throughout the art industry. And in fact, she's having a little gathering coming up in the next couple of weeks. Unfortunately, we're going to be away, but we're going to try our best to have representation there, and maybe I'll just send you there as the Busey. Would you do that for me?
Yeah.
I hope you're available. But in fact, I'm going to have her. I'm going to have her in one day as well and talk here on the show, because art is really a form of home improvement, and home improvement requires art to put on the walls, and it requires that, in your particular case, that form of confession. What about a website?
I have a website, jamiesmithstudio.com. I also do a lot on Facebook, so that's sort of my in the studio in process. So I'll update when I'm working on a painting. The website's sort of the finished pieces talking about my show, but Facebook's a nice way to express my everyday, because my life is definitely different than it was. I go to my studio now 9 to 5 and work away. So. And
now your studio is where?
So I live in Vancouver, and my studio is at 5th and Cambie, and I share it with some other friends, a guy that screen paints t-shirts.
Oh, wow.
So, and he sells them at different craft fairs, so I'm really learning about how the creative industry, you can do so many different things.
Well, my tie art, it's different. You'll love it when you see it. Folks, I hope you've really enjoyed it, and I think, once again, you got to introduce and also invite the folks out to your art show and the location where it's going to be.
So it's at the White Rock Community Center, and it's next week on Thursday, July 24th, from 7 to 9 is the opening reception, and the work will be up for a month. So if you can't make it next week, you can always pop in, and you'll get a gallery guide which will tell you about each painting and each confession, so you can have a nice read on what people around us are confessing all the time.
Well, I wouldn't miss that for all the money in the world, folks. Jamie Smith, Confessions. Make your way to the show, and certainly you can make your way to our HouseSmart Home Information Center right here at 2320 King George Boulevard in sunny South Surrey, White Rock. And we'll have a couple of the confession paintings here on display, I'm sure, without a doubt. But folks, thanks for being with us on our first Ask Shell coffee break for this new summer-fall season of 2014. And we'll talk to you again. And don't you forget it. Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you.
You betcha.